Mike, why don't we start kind of like I always do at the beginning. Tell us a bit, are you from Saskatoon?
I'm not from Saskatoon. I'm one of the many that live here in Saskatoon that grew up in a small town. I grew up out in Harris, which is a few stones throws out west of Saskatoon. So I'm one of those kids that grew up in a town where you started in kindergarten with 6 of your friends and you graduated with those same 6 in grade 12, so very small town. Moved into Saskatoon to attend the U of S. Got my.
What did you take?
I was an accounting major, and accounting. Woo! Yeah, right there. Yeah, there we go.
That's the only time you hear
Edward School of Business. Shout out for them.
Accountants never get excited about anything except when there's another accountant.
Yeah. There's usually groans.
Can't wait for April. It's the best month.
So. I took commerce, accounting. It's actually where I met my lovely wife at the U of S in probably some consolidations class or something like that. So graduated 2002. I've worked with a public practice accounting firm. Worked in healthcare distribution, and for the last 4+ years. I've been involved at Contech General Contractors, I guess kind of with a finger in the anything and everything to do with the organization, from marketing to HR to, of course, finance. And as Evan had said in kind of the lead up, is we're an organization that has gone through the startup phase. The company began in 1994. Kind of with a single tradesperson. Larry Plett started the company. He likes to tell it as he's a guy with a skill saw and a truck. And it kind of took off from there to where when I joined the organization, we were at right around 50 employees. Last year, we were kind of bumping up against almost getting to 100 employees within the company. With kind of the changing times economically in the construction industry, we have pulled back a little bit from that peak. Right now we're right around the 70 employees, and I still think we're going reasonably strong. I think when anybody asks me how's business, it's going okay, but of course it definitely could be better.
Mike, you're doing really good, but it's not a monologue, buddy. I'm supposed to ask you questions. Goodness, man. You just told the whole story. All right, drive safe, everybody. I'm teasing you.
So you texted me all those questions ahead of time. I thought I was just supposed to answer them when we hit the road.
Yeah, that's the truth. Okay, Mike, don't screw this up. Do a monologue, and I'm just going to do this. So you kind of skipped over some stuff because you didn't start right in construction. I know your job right before this was medical sales stuff.
Yep.
So how do you go from, tell us a bit about that job and if there was what you learned from that, and then why did you jump, and like what was that's a big jump, isn't it? It seems like it is.
It isn't. Making the change was essentially something that I guess I didn't seek out to go join a construction company. Good friend of mine that I actually had played fastball with over the years, and definitely we knew each other personally. He's the operations manager at Contech, and I think he reached out to me just over 4 years ago to say that they were kind of in a bind. They'd lost their finance person. They had a few things that were not going well within the organization, and were looking for some help, and wondered if I knew anybody. And I said, yeah, I think I do know somebody that might want to come and help. And but kind of the rest is kind of history on that, where I'd met with Larry, the owner, and a few other from the team, and definitely seemed like the kind of organization that was in alignment with my values and my goals, and it has been a great fit ever since. So.
Well, you mentioned you mentioned that you met your wife in university, and you've been in contact for 4 years. So you were probably married when you made the switch. So when that guy called you, what was the driver? Because it's not easy to make a transition in general, but you have kids, you have a family. At that point, it's risk, because you don't really know what you're getting into. It's change. So what was the catalyst? What was it? Just you wanted to change? Was it the opportunity? And was it an easy decision for you with family and all of that considered?
No life-changing decisions are ever easy to make, but I know if I were to think back to that time, it was actually more of a risk to kind of stay static and feel like maybe you were not growing, not advancing, or just maybe not challenged on a day-to-day basis. Not to say that any of my past roles have been, not to play them down in any regard, but I did feel like I'd kind of outgrown them, and just the idea of a new challenge and a new opportunity was something that was exciting, and I didn't want to pass it up. I guess in terms of risk, there's risks to doing things, and of course there's risks to not doing things as well that we always have to weigh in.
And your wife was just like, yeah, no problem, go for it.
Oh,
or was it a conversation
100%.
where she was like, well, wait a minute?
I think I told her after I decided. It just works easier that way.
Well, your wife. So in that, I was thinking, man, I got to do a joke with Mike about his wife, and his wife is a curler, a fairly successful curler. Does she ever just point the broom at the couch, and you know exactly what that means?
I'm already there.
I was like, for a friend's 40th birthday party, they did a curling party, and we all acted like we knew what we were doing, but I'd never curled in my life, so I just seen it on TV, so I kept pointing, and the team that was playing was like, oh my gosh, they know what they're doing. The first one didn't even get past that red line. I don't even know what that line means, but apparently it means it didn't work. But so getting into Contact now, you started at Contact. Are you in the same role that you were when you started? Or has that kind of morphed and grown as well?
My role has definitely evolved a lot since I began at Contact. I think I came into Contact with the financial reporting was inadequate, I guess, to say the least. They'd had some personnel turnover. It was that company that was in that phase of trying to sort out who are the next people we need to add in regards to sales, project management, how are we going to actually grow this company. So I know my first year would have been a lot of, let's just get the financial systems in order. Let's actually have a project management system that we can get reliable information out of. Some of those kinds of challenges in the first year, and then kind of as the progressive years afterwards, it was, let's start picking off the other challenges within the organization to try to improve upon, whether it's increasing our design capabilities, which we've definitely beefed up that team. Our head design guy is here. Dwayne is hiding out in the back, right by the fire exit as usual. But when I started in Contact, we had Dwayne as one designer, and now we have a 4-person team that works in design to help to serve our customers better. So we've been able to grow in certain areas and just work through certain processes as an organization to try to improve them all to deliver better products to our end users.
So when you started Contact, how many employees were
It was in the
working for
50-ish range.
And what kind of projects were so, I mean, part of the cool story that I want to kind of dig into is about the focus on taking a small business to a medium-sized business. We don't have a lot of those stories. It's usually starting right from the beginning. But there's as much stress and as much change and as much difficulties in that process as there are in starting a business. How are you guys expanding at this point? Is it project sizes? Are you looking at bigger projects, or is it just employees that you want to bring in and do more projects? Have you become more specialized? Like, what have you guys really been focusing on for the growth in the last couple of years?
It's a great question.
Of course it is.
It's a fantastic question. So in terms of growth, moving forward, like our growth strategy right now is to bid everything possible. Like there just isn't enough. What feels like there's not quite enough work out there for everybody to share in. It's musical chairs, and there's 12 of us circling around, and there's only 5 chairs. It is more difficult to get projects. If we go back 3 years ago when we were in a high growth mode, we were pretty much running full speed on what we call the design build business model, which is, to really put it simply, is if you're a business owner, you need a new building, come and meet with us. We'll assist with the design and the construction of that project. And it's a relationship between us as the contractor and you as the owner. So we were able to really grow our business in that segment. A lesson looking backwards at that time was we did kind of turn our attention away from the public tender market. So we weren't bidding public tender type of jobs, and got all in on one direction. And right now it's really kind of pulled back the other way, where we are bidding. There's tenders closing every day. We are putting in a price on essentially every project that we do feel that we can complete successfully. We will not bid on something that we aren't comfortable with. We need to know that we are able to build it. But it's right now, it's to grow is you go after everything that's out there.
So you mentioned you're heavily weighted kind of in the public tender, and then that kind of dried up a bit. How are you looking at business now? Are you trying to diversify? Like you have a couple of the big tender stuff, but then there's the smaller guys, or are you just bidding on everything?
We are bidding on everything that we feel we can fit. We can fit. Yeah.
So you mentioned too that there's a lot of people playing musical chairs for the 5 chairs. How has that pressure been on your business? Has it forced you guys to look at efficiencies within, or is it just you're dropping price and losing margin? Like, how are you competing in that? Because there's a lot of industries that have felt that pain in the last couple of years, construction especially, but lots of industries have seen the well dry up a bit. And the tendency for some people is just to, okay, I'm going to drop my price. How have you guys competed with that?
We've definitely tried to not drop our price. We've got a more aggressive in our pricing, if we use the buzzwords kind of thing, but it's we're definitely an organization. We don't try to just buy the work. I don't think that's a model that has any long-term sustainability to it. We do go into projects looking to make you look to make a reasonable margin in it, but on the public tender side, there's many projects that we bid on that will have 11, 12 contractors that are pricing, and if you want to be the winner on that, you kind of have to make a mistake. You have to miss something, which you don't want to do, because you do see that the winner is probably going to lose a little bit of money or break even on a project, which, they'll keep their hopper full a little bit with some work. And I'm generalizing. There's of course there's lots of projects that whoever is the low bid, there's still margin in it and whatever else, but it is a lot tougher place to win the work.
Well, and the bidding process, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, because you guys are dealing with big steel buildings, big steel structures. I'm assuming that process takes a while. Like you're not bidding on a job that's going to start next week, and commodity like steel went up, stuff like how have you combated that kind of process, knowing that you're bidding out in a distance, but you also need to be competitive? Is like have you guys developed strategies against that? I mean, I don't want you to tell us our strategies because people watch, but like how have you guys how have you guys really looked at that and gone like, we need to understand what's potentially happening in the future, but also be realistic enough because people are reading the bottom line today? Like, has that been a pressure point for you and the team? And like, have you started buying cheaper steel? I don't know.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, wink with both eyes.
We've in regards to the steel buildings that we work with, we've actually exclusively used a single supplier of our steel buildings for over a decade. Varco Pruden is a manufacturer in the U.S. They are, I guess, we deem them, and the industry does deem them to be in the upper echelon for quality. And we actually have never really shopped that. It's created a great relationship with Varco Pruden and ourselves to know, they know that we're not just shopping their price to everybody, and vice versa, so we can actually work with each other very honestly. Is there projects that we could probably go shop and find a little bit cheaper building? Yes. Would that building be to the standards that we would want it to be to? Possibly not, and that's where down the road that could burn you. So it'd be short-term gain for maybe not any long-term gain.
And that's an interesting idea that I think a lot of business owners deal with. It's in a sense it's integrity. Like it's there's people out there, whether you have a coffee shop, or you're construction, or you're a law firm, or you're a paralegal. I'm just saying things that I know about. I don't even know about them. I don't know what a paralegal even does.
Tech
but anyway,
companies.
yeah,
I know
stuff.
you really know your tech
job
companies.
titles that I've heard.
I don't know. Paralegal. Where did that come from? Anyway, but there's jobs that are feeling pressure with with competition coming in with lesser product, lesser quality, and they win so it's hard for business owners to keep that integrity, keep what's important to them, their core values, and keep pressing on. And how do you pitch that to your staff when they're seeing people beat you by 10% when you know that you don't even have 10% in that? Like, how do you rally the troops and saying we need to stick to the course? Like, is that something, do you guys have staff meetings, or do you just say, well, get them next time?
We definitely do have kind of all hands on deck meetings where you're meeting as the field staff or within the office, and there is a conversation about, there is a core value set that we do as an organization speak to on a regular basis, and the majority of the gist of the core value set is to do things right and to treat people right, and that it will pay long-term dividends, whether it's with employees that you might ask a little bit extra from them, they're willing to give it if you've given them extra in the past. With customers, with suppliers, with sub-trades, to know that you're good for your word, that you're going to do the right thing, that you're not going to cut a corner on a project because you maybe missed something in your estimate or your bid, that you need to try to save some money on it, so you're going to use a lesser material or something different to solve the problem. I think there are some potential, you can make short-term gains doing that, but in the long term, it is not going to work out well for your organization. And I know when we chatted earlier, it's like Saskatoon is a growing, expanding city, but it still is a small city at heart. That
Still got a bit of Harris in it.
it is a little bigger, but word gets around. You do a great job for somebody, word gets around. You do a really poor job for somebody, that word gets around even faster. And we've been fortunate enough to have several projects that we've wrapped up recently that have become essentially our best sales pitch has been buildings like Cavia Auto Body on 33rd Street, and and Security Building Supplies out on Arthur Rose Avenue that we were able to work with them right from the design phase through to handing over the keys at the end of the project to a very happy customer. And they're willing to, they tell everybody who comes in their building that Contech helped us do this. And by no means did any of those projects did they go perfectly. They all had challenges. They all had problems that had to be solved through them. But we felt like we addressed those problems in a manner that the owner is happy. We were like all parties were the win-win-win. Like that cliched win-win scenario came out at the end, and we're still getting referrals from past customers that sometimes you don't get in our industry.
It's my show, and you mentioned Security Lumber.
Oh, yeah.
They do have a fantastic building. It's a gorgeous building.
Yeah.
But if you want quality cabinets at a fair price, come to New Vet Building Products.
You guys need a new building?
Yeah, we might actually.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to now. Where's the contract? So the thing about your industry too is some of the people that some of the competition, they're like older than grandparents, like in terms of they've been around for some 100 years. So like you hear these big companies and they've been building their business for 100 years. Contech has been around for
25
25.
years.
So you guys have built a pretty substantial brand in a short period of time. What do you attribute that to? Is it the things that you're saying, like we just stick to a good job? Is it having a good team? What have been some of the pressures and downfalls of growing that fast in an industry that has some pretty big long-term residents?
I guess multi-pronged question, very, very good question. So in terms of the industry within Saskatoon, we have had the conversations internally that we're a company that's been around for 25 years, and in some instances we're the kid. There's a lot of contractors in town that 40, 50, 100 years in business in Saskatoon. I know one of our competitors, they built the Besborough. Like, well, yeah, we didn't get a chance to bid on that one. We weren't around. But so there's a lot of great builders in town, and I think that just even the city as a whole, what we have to offer, it is one where it's kind of like that 3 F's of Saskatchewan: the food, fuel, and fertilizer. We have the economic drivers to continue to grow as a city. And there will be, as we continue to grow, there's going to be lots of work for all of the good contractors that are here in town, and hopefully we can carve out our niche that we can continue to grow alongside of it.
So as you guys have started growing, you're adding people to the team. What have been some of the biggest pains for you in a leadership role with your team? And what lessons did you learn from that? And how has that kind of steered for the course going forward? Doesn't need to be something personal.
Yeah.
I see Dwayne, I bet you he's been a big headache, but
He's
like
been,
in
yeah.
general, what have been some of the struggles you guys have had to deal with? Is it pricing? Is it the quality? Is it sticking to your core values? And how has that changed the course for you guys going forward?
I think in terms of some of the challenges actually have been where you perhaps don't realize it in the moment, is where you maybe you do have something that's going on that you are tracking off of your core values, but you don't realize it in the moment. And once you do realize it and are able to correct, you kind of look back and say, I can't believe we let that go on that long. And it's, I don't want to get into specifics.
But is it then at that point, is it on your radar then? So you stop letting that stuff last as long?
Yeah.
Like, is that the less, like, I mean, I think that's the advantage of getting older. You kind of realize you put up with stuff, and then you put up with it less. And then you get to an age where you can just be rude, but you're like, yeah, but I'm happy because I'm not putting up with crap.
Yeah, it's like Christmas party. I ain't going
I
to
hate
that.
this Christmas party.
I hate it.
Humbug.
I'm sick.
Yeah.
I'm coming.
So yeah, so I mean, is that something you guys now, like whenever situations like that, like, because it's not always common that people just learn a lesson once. Sometimes they have to like go with it over and over again, and then finally it's like, okay, why do I keep letting a bad employee work for us? Or why do I work with a bad customer? They're draining, they're taking a lot of time. How have you guys, when those lessons come, do you like implement them, or do you have like manager meetings and they're like, look, like we're off course again. We've learned this lesson.
Yeah.
Is that a dialogue you have?
I think the one example in regards to an employee that has become either disengaged or
Earmuffs, Dwayne.
something going on is I think that the issues that we've had in regards to that have lessened over time. Doesn't mean that you totally dodge the issues that can arise from it, but
Does it change your hiring process? Like,
it actually doesn't. It doesn't change the hiring process, I don't think. What we shoot for is, we, in a really general sense, is you hire good people that you know you wouldn't be embarrassed to have them meet your customers or meet your suppliers, or just, you know that they're a good person that can become a part of the team.
so Mike, as you see the business, because the economy's kind of slowed down, you alluded to that. You guys have been building your brand, you're looking to grow your business. Where do you see Contact in the next 5 years? And where do you see the city going? Like, do you see it growing? Is it going to be at the rate it was 2 years ago? Where are you hedging your bets on?
Well, I guess as an organization, we're definitely hedging our bets on growth. We are in the final couple weeks at our current location. We've built ourselves a brand new snazzy headquarters out in the BizHub area, out in the North End, where we're moving from we do have a 6,000 square foot facility today, mostly office, a little bit of a shop out the back, barely enough yard, where we were cramped. We didn't have enough room to operate. So we're moving to a new facility that, of course, we found a very good contractor to build for us, where we're going to have 8,000 square feet of office, and we have 12,000 square feet of shop and mechanic area out in BizHub, and I think it's going to be a tremendous leaping point for us to be able to continue to expand our services, to grow our team, even just in terms of the morale of the team, to know that we're invested. We're in this for the long haul. We're here to grow. We're here for the next 25 years, or however long they'll keep me around for, I guess. But and it's something that I think that sends a great message to our internal staff that we're here to grow. In terms of the city, I do think that we're close to coming out the other end of the flat spot that we're in. There's no secrets that we ended up with a little too much inventory of commercial building space spread around the city that's been taking a little while to absorb, and I think let's give it another 18 months. Evan, how's that sound?
Sounds depressing, but I agree with you. That's how I've budgeted, unfortunately. But yeah. So you see some optimism, which is good coming forward. How have you guys, we'll end with this. You talked a bit about how you kind of like to do the design and build, and part of that, I suspect, is because you can kind of control the process. You can control the plans that you're working with and the details you need. But it also takes you away from being a commodity, because especially in those tender packages, like you're just a commodity at points. How have you guys focused that part of your business going forward? Are you hoping to be 100% design and build, or are you still open to like plans coming in and you just supply? Do you just supply, or do you always do supply and install? Like, how are you balancing the business going forward, and why are you doing that?
Well, we've definitely done actually everything that you've mentioned there: the supply and install, the design and build. there's different levels of the design that we'll be involved in. Sometimes we'll just be involved in the design of the building, and they might have somebody else they want to have involved in the interior design. There's multiple hybrids of what it can look like from a customer's perspective, and I think where we really try to key on is that customer's perspective of what do they need, what do they want. Definitely go through a real intensive conversation with a potential customer of what do you really want, what do you need, what do you have for land, have you talked to your bank?
So they buy land first before they come to you?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. In terms of really coming up with what your budget can be, what your building layout can be, it is very difficult to come up with that if you don't know what lot it's going on. So at least have an idea of what lot we're at, because you can have significant costs can come into play if you have to remove a meter of soil off of a whole 3-acre site. That's going to totally change the ball game in terms of pricing. So,
or it's an infill in Riversdale or something, and you thought you were bidding.
Yeah. So to know the piece of land is key to being able to give good information. But there are lots of times you'll sit down with a potential customer and they just want some general ideas, and they're thinking 20,000 square foot office, or 20,000 square foot warehouse office, and they want 4,000 of office. They need a couple loading docks. What should they be on the lookout for? And we can help them with that and help them through the decision-making process. And you actually you hope from that relationship building that the project, if it were to come to fruition, that they do come back to you because they've built a trust with you. Are there customers or people that we work with that come and get that advice and then wander off and go get it built by somebody else? Yes, that happens, but it's not something that we're going to look to try to prevent.
It's between them and God, I say.
That is, yeah. So, and that's you do your best for whatever customer walks in through the front door, and if history is any indication, we've had a really good success rate with building that trust and having customers sign contracts with us and decide to do a project with us, whether it's a relatively small leasehold improvement to a multi-million-dollar facility. So
Mike, I said I'll end with this, but I'm like a preacher. 3 more points, we'll be here for 2 hours.
Preacher's son, actually.
Yeah,
I didn't know that about you. Preacher's son here.
The only one that could ever reach you.
Yeah.
Was the son of a preacher man. Come on. This crowd is tough tonight. Anyway.
They hate Christmas.
They do hate Christmas. They're like, I don't even want to be here. Turn that Christmas tree off. You're a younger leader. You've made some transitions from different industries. What is one of the leadership lessons, quotes, or just something you've learned, picked up, or heard that has really driven you or guided you through the last few years? Whether is it a quote, or is it a lesson, or is it a practice? What would you say in terms of leadership you have picked up and it means something to you? You don't have to lie either. Sometimes it's just work. I work hard.
There is one that I do. Sometimes you catch yourself not doing it, but one that I try to do is regardless of the scenario or the situation, the only thing you can control is your response to it, and trying to just pull yourself back regardless of what's happening. You don't get a job, something goes wrong. Well, you didn't cause it to happen. What can you do? What's your reaction? How can you, say, turn something around, or just dust your hands and walk away, or whatever might need to happen?
No, honestly, I've interviewed a lot of leaders, and the ones that make the biggest impact are usually the ones that are able to take a deep breath and not react, either overreact or underreact. You just need to be able to have a bit of patience. Mike, thanks so much.
Thank you, Evan,
for being our guest today. Awesome.